Johnny Baseball.
Hello and welcome back to another fantastic episode of Johnny Baseball. Today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's. I'm loving it.
That's it, Johnny. They believe you. They think you're famous.
So on today's episode we'll be talking about the world champion Chicago Cubs. Something about World Championship Chicago Cubs just doesn't sound right. It's kind of like saying non-alcoholic beer. The whole point of the Chicago Cubs is for them to perpetually lose and make you feel better about your team. So I gotta be honest, I was rooting against the Cubs last year. It's weird because I'm usually like all for the underdog teams, but for whatever reason I just reveled in the misery of Cubs fans. I mean, why stop at 100 years? 200-year curse. Couldn't we at least get a 200-year curse? The playoffs last year were just kind of a bummer for me. Every time the Cubs fans started singing that hokey-ass song, I was just like... The one good thing about the Cubs playoff run was I played a drinking game where I would drink a beer every time I spotted a Cubs fan who wasn't white, and I'm now 5 months sober.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
So I knew going into this, trying to do all 30 teams and finding 3 guys on each team, there were going to be some teams that were harder than others. And there's probably no team that's quite as hard to find 3 undervalued guys on than the Cubs. And it's not just because they're completely stacked with talent, I mean top to bottom, but the fact that they made such a deep playoff run means that they were watched nationally for an extra month, and it gave people who weren't familiar with them plenty of time to get acquainted with some of these guys that they might not have heard of otherwise, like Javier Baez. So that being said, just bear with me on these 3 picks. So first up we got Mike Montgomery, former first round pick. He mostly pitched out of the bullpen last year, but he was dominant in the few spot starts that he had and his bullpen role. He completely shut down lefties with a 181 average allowed, and he fared pretty damn good against righties too with a 232 average allowed. For those of you who think this guy was all smoke and mirrors and that his numbers were inflated because of the fact that he was in the bullpen most of the time, here's how his numbers broke down. So over 64.1 innings as a reliever, he had a 2.1 ERA, 21.7% K rate, and a 58.9% ground ball percentage. And then you compare that to a small sample of him as a starter where he pitched 35.2 innings, had a 23.1% strikeout rate, and a 57.4% ground ball percentage. I mean, obviously his numbers as a reliever were a lot better, but his numbers as a starter were dang good in their own right. He had a huge velocity spike last year, as you can see in this chart. Now, usually transitioning to a bullpen role, you'll get a couple more miles per hour on your fastball, but as a lefty, being able to touch almost 97 on the gun is impressive no matter where you're throwing. And it wasn't just his fastball that showed big improvement last year. All 4 of his main pitches improved significantly from the year before, especially in the area of ground ball percentage. This is the breakdown of his ground ball percentages per pitch. He had a 57.8 on the fastball, a 60.5 on the curve, a 50% on the cutter, and a 71.4% on the changeup. Those are all incredible numbers. And he managed to pair that with some really good whiff rates on his other pitches. The curve, which was the second most used pitch after the fastball, had a 16.1% strikeout rate, the cutter had a 19.5%, and the changeup had a 28% whiff rate. Those are all stellar numbers, so in addition to those ground balls, he's missing bats. He's a former first-round pick. He's pretty young. There is a bit of risk here because his control isn't exactly where you want it to be. His strikeout to walk is under 3, and he does give up a couple home runs, but I think if they do give him the opportunity to start and be in the rotation, he's going to be a steal because his current average draft position is 279.7. I think he could be in line for a breakout. I'm predicting 3.5 ERA, about a 1.24 whip, and about 8 Ks per 9, which I think is solid, especially since he's not even being picked up in 10-team leagues right now. Alright, next up, Jason Hayward, the dude with the weirdest beard in MLB.
Jason, what are you hiding in there? What are you hiding in that beard? Just give it up.
So even in a year where this guy was a complete mess, he had some encouraging peripherals. His K rate was 15.7%, which is very good and below his career average. His walk rate was only slightly down compared to his career average. He's a guy who has notoriously hit too many ground balls throughout his career, but he managed to cut his ground ball percent by 11% between 2015 and 2016 to a more manageable level of 46.2. So what was wrong with Hayward?
Besides that beard.
Yeah, he tied a career low in hard contact, and he had a Ben Revere-esque 4.8% home run per fly ball percentage. People pointed out a lot of flaws in his mechanics early on, and I don't know if it was the pressure of the big contract, but it was pretty obvious he was pressing. He also had a 266 BABIP. I kind of think that last year was a combination of bad luck and bad mechanics, but the early reports are saying he's made a concerted effort to change his swing mechanics and fix what was wrong last year. And believe it or not, this guy is 27 years old still. I feel like he's been around forever. Hayward's a bit of a fickle fanny. I mean, every single year he seems to alternate between solid seasons and horrible seasons. He'll flash signs of 30 home run upside and then hit 11 home runs. He'll flash the potential of 25 steal potential and then give you nothing. His early ADP is only one spot ahead of Mike Montgomery, so given where he's going in drafts, I would happily take the flyer on him. There's plenty of risk, but there's plenty of upside, and I don't think it's going to cost you too much. If I had to make a projection, I'd probably say something like a 270, 370, 450 triple slash, and 18 home runs and 15 stolen bases. So next up, we got Benzo Brist. I mean, what do you want me to say? It's Benzo Brist, alright? You know what you're getting. He managed to set career highs in hard percentage and walk rate last year, which is encouraging at his age. Like I said, it's just tough to find guys who are being undervalued on the Cubs. I think Zobrist is being slightly undervalued. He's being drafted about 40 picks after Pedroia, and I think he's going to give you similar production. Plus, he has the versatility of being able to play all over the field, so he'll at least get you outfield eligibility, might even pick up other positions depending on how things shake out with injuries. He could smack you some double-digit home runs. He was making harder contact and pulling the ball a lot more, and that usually corresponds with a bit of a power bump, so it wouldn't be too crazy to see him get back up in the high teens in home runs. And I think he might still have a couple steals in him, so he could be a nice value. I predict something like a 280, 360, 410 triple slash with about 15 home runs and 8 to 10 stolen bases. So there you have it. The world champion Chicago Cubs. What's up is down. What's right is wrong. What's in is out. What's hot is cold.
What's sweet is sour.
What's ugly is sexy. That's all I got.